Hey everybody, Roberto Villegas here to introduce a new addition to the show. Meet Professor Robert. Anytime I happen to say, I'll look that up later, or I happen to mess up in the show, Professor Robert here will make sure to correct my ass and make sure to give you guys interesting facts that you need to know. Think of them like the pop-out videos from the old days. I know it was pop-up video, Professor Robert. I was just testing you. Okay, no need to go overboard. Now let's jump into this thing like jackrabbits. Look, Dr. Robotnik, shut up. I know, jackass, it's called a joke, you little 16-bit piece of crap. Search that, why don't you, little so-and-so. Look, it's not that... What the hell am I doing? I'm the one that writes your dialogue. I give you the information. I am literally arguing with myself. Let's just start the show.
I just can't seem to grow up. I said I just can't seem to grow up. But you know what? What? I don't think I want to. Follow me here. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Retro Fun Time. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas, and we are concluding our look at the Zelda series with the only one released for the Super Nintendo. It's 16-bit, and it goes back into the past in more ways than one. That's right, people. It's time for The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Released on November 21st, 1991, the game is a prequel to the original Zelda game. In this version, we follow the adventures of young Link as he travels through Hyrule in order to defeat the evil Ganon to restore Hyrule to its former state. This would be the first game to introduce the concept of a parallel world that Link must traverse. This would be a reoccurring theme in other Zelda games, such as the Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. A Link to the Past would go on to be one of the best-selling games for the system, with 4.6 million copies sold worldwide. It would mark the only Zelda game to be released on the Super Nintendo. Alright, well let's get into playing some Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I kind of pre-cooked a little bit of this scenery because the intro is really long and actually kind of annoying. So we just started off right now. We just rescued Zelda from the clutches of the evil dungeon. And I have a whole bunch of items and such. So let's kind of play around a bit. Let's get out. Let's actually explore the world. I want to know something before I start. So I have the torch, I have some bombs, I have a boomerang, I have a sword, got a whole bunch of rupees, and a whole bunch of keys. It's kind of weird. So let's explore this world. Now, if you notice, we have actually gone back to the overhead view, which is totally different from what we were originally. Of course, Legend of Zelda 2, or Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, was a side-scrolling view. So it looks like Nintendo abandoned that when they went to the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Originally, this was actually slated for the Nintendo Entertainment System, actually the Famicom. I think it was supposed to come out in '88 originally. That was when Nintendo started development of it, actually '88. But because the Super Nintendo was about on its way to the Japanese market, the Super Famicom that is, in 1990, they kind of delayed it until 91 and started actually putting a lot more development time and a lot more money behind it. You can tell a lot of it because of the fact of how big Hyrule is. Let's first check out the map. If you notice, we have a cool little Mode 7 effect here. Mode 7, of course, is the effect that lets you sort of stretch out things and actually expand the map a bit. So let's expand a bit more. So it looks like we've got to go to that X there. So let's go over that X. And as you notice, the map was huge. So it's just a huge map of the world of Hyrule that we have to explore at our disposal. So it's pretty pretty effective in terms of how that's done. And like I said, I think it's fantastic. The colors are beautiful. The game is crisp. It's the overhead view that a lot of us are used to. And a lot of gamers like the fact they went back to this overhead view, especially US gamers who are kind of put off by the side-scrolling nature. So definitely kind of coming back to the original overhead view was a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. And two, it looks gorgeous. I mean, it's still, to this day, the sprites still look great. I'm getting my ass handed to me. But it has this sort of very cartoony feel, but not in a, I guess for lack of better words, it has that sort of thing that you can only had on the NES, or the SNES I should say, or the 16-bit era. It's just something that could be done. I mean, look at all these things. I mean, compared to what we were experiencing in the NES days when they had to kind of just use 2 colors to make a cloud. I mean, look at this. We've got millions of colors. We got plenty of colors. I mean, look at that roof. We've got essentially shading going on. We got texture going. We have a lot of things going on right now on this simple little thing. We have, you know, multiple sprites, myself. We got the chicken there. We got this literally moving flowers. I mean, we have a ton of things compared to what our NES version had. So it is definitely really freaking cool. What's even more interesting, the fact that the actual sprites apparently are only 8 color palettes to kind of reduce on space. So there's a lot of, you know, even in this era, even though we're kind of moving into the SNES era, we have a little bit more space to play with, and a heck of a lot more space. At this point, this ROM was about, I think, a megabyte, which, I mean, that sounds small to you and I now, but compare that to the fact that I think like a program for what? I think it might have been like 20 kilobytes for the original Zelda. I'll have to double check all that stuff. Master Sword long ago, Prosperous this, all the fun stuff. Master Sword, Master Sword, Master Sword. But it's amazing to see what they did with this over the era of between, you know, now and then. So we gotta go. So I have to go here. So I don't know what it wants me to do now. He said to go here, but what does he say? The Elder, no one has seen him since the wizard's been collecting victims. What Master Sword? Well, I don't remember. Long ago, how to have it of that. His treasure of that. My sister sword is one of that. Sleeping before, to understand yes at all. Anyways, look for there. There must be someone in the village who knows where he is. You take care now, Link. I know where he is, so we can kind of just skip this part. So let's just head out. But yeah, no, Zelda for sure. They upped their game on this one tremendously. And so let's just actually, so you know, maybe we won't play so much the temple first one since everyone's seen it. We'll take that. Let's actually explore the world of Hyrule a bit. Let's walk around, because it's funny how, you know, as the years have gone on, and we've of course, you know, developed far, you know, bigger RPGs such as Skyrim and, you know, Diablo and all the other kind of RPGs. Even the era of MMOs that we have, massive multiplayer online RPG games. It is still amazing how beautiful this game is. It is still amazing how gorgeous this game is, and in just a simple way. I mean, God, look at those. God damn it. Even my death sequence is gorgeous. Game over. Let's save and continue. Start from Link's house. I mean, even Link's house is kind of cool. Link has a house. So, I mean, like, imagine, like, don't imagine. I actually remember back when this came out, 1991. I forgot the exact year, I mean, the exact date. But I remember when this came out. It was probably one of my more cherished games when it came out on the Super Nintendo. It was gorgeous. I mean, it still blows my mind how well this game was developed. I even found out later on that when they developed the other alternate world, that being the Dark World, which I will show you in the next part, apparently they didn't change. They didn't, like, for example, save the map again. They just kind of saved essentially the delta, the differences between the two maps. which is insane that they did that. Like, it's such a smart memory, usage trick that I wouldn't even thought they've done that. I wouldn't have figured. I figured, well, they, whatever. But so it's amazing as to how well this was designed, engineering's sake, but just how well designed in general as a game. It's one of the top games in my opinion that came out for the Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo. It is still gorgeous to this day. I still am blown away by essentially how much setup. Even the music. I mean, Koji Kondo came back for this soundtrack again, so it's really good to see him back in terms of music styling. And so, I mean, imagine what his mind was going through. I mean, even when he did at that point the Super Mario World soundtrack, but compared to the 5 channels, and we're going to about at least double or triple that. I think it was. I'd have to really review how many channels there were on the Super Nintendo. But, I mean, listen to that score. Like, he's got horns, he's got a string section, he's got a goddamn orchestra at this point. And, god damn it, I'm getting my ass handed to me. And it's insane how great it was. So actually, we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to go talk about the whole Dark World. We're actually going to go a little bit further in the game because I figure I might as well give you as much a look at the game as I can while we're here. But in between the scenes, since we're actually talking about the Super Nintendo right now, let's actually kind of talk about the Super Nintendo. Let's figure out what it was, how it was, and more importantly, what was different between the NES and the Super Famicom? What did Nintendo change when they went to the 16 bits?
With just 21 megahertz of clock speed and a little over 32,000 colors at its disposal, the Super Famicom hit Japanese markets in 1990 and would hit the US market under the name Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991. Powered by the 5A22, the system could display up to 256 colors at one time from a 15-bit RGB color spectrum. Boasting 7 different modes of graphic displays, the system did some pretty advanced things for the consoles of that era. One of the more interesting facts is the sound chip, the SPC700. Designed by Sony, it would create more realistic sounding music compared to that of the Sega Mega Drive, as it utilized sampled instruments, 8 independent voices, and a 16-bit waveform at 32 kHz. It would allow for more complex soundtracks and sound effects never heard by players of that time. In terms of the differences beyond the cartridge shape and design, both systems were pretty similar. Both were top-loading, had the exact same controller ports, and could play each other's games with an adapter. In the end, because of the competition around this time, the SNES was more open, though Nintendo of America still had some content policies in place. The SNES and Super Famicom were well received, selling 43.10 million units worldwide.
Okay, we are back. We're a little further on now in the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. We're actually going to go take down the Dark Wizard. This is the guy that's been sort of screwing with your entire time. That we've actually acquired all the pendants of power, and of course, the Master Sword. So we're actually going to try to get through this really quick so we can get to the Dark World, because that is where the fun begins, I think. It's one of the more interesting things about The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. The fact of the matter that the first part of the game wasn't, it was amazing. I remember as a kid coming to this point of the game where I get thrown into the Dark World going, holy crap, there's more to this game? You mean to tell me this is not it? This is just the beginning? And so it was psychotic. Just imagine that this game had a lot more to do. And I was just blown away as a kid, just going, seeing how huge this world was. And so for me, I don't even have to imagine what gamers thought back then. I was a gamer back then, so for me, this part of the game, I remember so vividly getting into the Dark World, just being warped in there, and seeing essentially evil Hyrule, for lack of better words, and just being introduced to it, and seeing again, where Hyrule was very green and lush, and I guess had a lot of shrubbery. The Dark World was desolate and destroyed, and had this sort of very evil vibe to it. So it was such a weird. It was it was like Alice going through the Looking Glass and sort of going into this parallel universe that was filled with way more dangers than it should have been. Whereas, you know, basic Hyrule was sort of easier, the Dark World was way tougher, and there was almost zero room for forgiveness. And here we go. I'm not ready to admit defeat yet. I will draw you to the Dark World. It's like, what do you mean the Dark World? And so you enter at this like Aztec-esque palace, and someone's talking to you. The void, the place where you now stand was the Golden Land, but evil power turned it into the Dark World. The wizard had broken the wise men's seal and opened a gate to link the worlds at Hyrule Castle. In order to save this half of the world, the Light World, you must win back the golden power. You must also rescue the 7 maidens who Akim sent to the Dark World. Ironically enough, Akim originally was a priest in the Japanese version, but because of Nintendo of America's very, very strict policy against religious artifacts, that of course was not allowed. I still don't know then at that part how the church and Chrono Trigger made it in, but I need to actually research that when we do talk about Chrono Trigger. But we're not talking about Chrono Trigger, we're talking about The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. And the fact of the matter that this thing is still, it's still just as awesome. I don't think normal bombs are gonna work. Yeah, I think we need super bombs. I mean, notice certain things. Like, let's go to the map really quick. Remember I told you about the deltas being different? Now, if we notice, the basic structure of the map is pretty much the same as our original one, except the palette is completely different. We've got, of course, trees here. We have weird trees with, like, face-looking things. We've got different enemies that are gonna kill me. But, you know, killing me is always going to happen in this game. So we've got a lot of different sort of the world around me right now. It is an entirely, you know, as much as the light world is amazing, the dark world is just as gorgeous. Even as desolate as it looks, because, you know, it looks a lot, we have a lot duller palette. We have duller greens. We have kind of that. It's still just as cool. And notice even this part here is very similar to what the other map had, except with different enemies, of course. We had different sort of sprite choices. So literally, you can as a developer, they just switch that out. They switch these out for that. So they've made a really kind of cool game, and just it's very much an interesting kind of development choice that I would never have thought of as a possibility happening. And like I said, it's still, like, this game is still just as freaking gorgeous. I'm still amazed at how well this game has held up. So let's try to go in this other temple area at least. I gotta kill this psychopath. What's amazing is the fact that the game introduced this sort of duality nature. What the heck? You're new here, aren't you? Did you come looking for the power of gold? Well, you're too late. It will obey only the first person who touches it. The man who last claimed the power of gold wished for this world, reflects his heart. Yes, I came here because of the greed for power of gold, and look what happened to me. To restore the golden land, a person worthy of the golden power must defeat that. Yeah. What a mischievous thing to leave. Well, sorry, buddy. Sorry, Tree. Sucks to be you. So yeah, I mean, again, this is a game that I still think holds up to this day. There are a few games that I think hold up from the 16-bit era. Look, even there's an arrow there. And that's not to say that they're bad games from there. I just don't think certain games hold up anymore. It's actually very funny how many 16-bit games I think still hold up compared to some 32-bit games. 32-bit, of course, being for the PlayStation era, for those who have no idea. I'm going to have to actually go into exactly why things are how they are when it comes to the bits. I'll probably do that in a future episode. But Legend of Zelda definitely is the kind of game that I think holds up. And I really do. I probably should have. I'll need to actually revisit this game, just because there's so much in this game to talk about. Oh, what the hell? We have a monkey. Yeah, I got some rupees. Now, why am I giving him rupees? Because A, I've got a lot, and B, I need him to help me solve the puzzle. Yep. Now he'll open it for me. He'll be an awesome monkey. Good job, monkey. And we are almost out of time here, so we're just going to kind of start exploring this temple. If you notice, it actually has a very similar vibe to the first temple of the game. I know a lot of you didn't see that, but in terms of the gameplay, it's actually very similar. Most of the temples are roughly the same. You have to actually get the big master key, get the compass. Once you've got the compass, get the map, and the master key will let you get into the item of the dungeon, and will allow you to, of course, rescue, I guess the princess or whatever thing you have to do in the thing. It's sort of basically in the, wow, I didn't, oh that's right, these are the guys that do monkey see, monkey don't, or something like that. This is the, so let me actually hit this guy. There we go. Well, I'm glad I could give you guys a complete, at least a little bit of a look of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Like I said, it's a great game, it's a fun game to play, but what does it actually leave in terms of a legacy? I mean, this was the only game to come out for the Super Nintendo that was from the Zelda series. So what does this say, since this is our last game in the entire Zelda series, what does it say for the entire series? And more importantly, what is my final summation on the 3 games that came out, for the 2 for the Nintendo and the 1 for the Super Nintendo? What does that leave for the legacy of games, not only for then, but for now? Well, tune in for my final summation. So what's my final take on this whole game, and in the series in general? Well, when it comes to Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, it shows what 16-bit could do. It wasn't simply that the increased space allowed for more gameplay, but allowed for more complex storytelling to occur, using things like alternate worlds to better explain the threat that Ganon is. The minute you enter the dark realm that was tainted by his evil presence, it becomes clear to the player what is at stake if Link doesn't complete his goals. It's a challenging game, but not overly difficult. It's a great balance of gameplay, story, and challenge. But what can we learn from the original Legend of Zelda games? What legacy do they leave beyond the number of sequels? What can modern gamers and game designers take from the series? First and foremost, storytelling is key. Though we are constantly pushing the visual representation of this medium with better and better graphics, the reason the player is interacting with the game is far more important. A good story can get the gamer to look past the graphics. The recent Telltale's Walking Dead games show the power of that. It's a game like Zelda that started illustrating this from the get-go. Second, understand your players. Change is good, but as they say, dance with the one that brung you. Understand what your core audience expects and innovate around that base idea. A great example of this in modern game design is Blizzard and their StarCraft series, keeping to what made the original great, but adding extras to keep it fresh. Finally, remember that in the end, it's still a game. Don't stress so much on, we need a tutorial mission, or we need a large cutscene. Games are meant to be played, not watched. Understand the medium you're working in and use its strengths. I'm not saying to not have any cutscenes, but find a happy balance between the two. I think this is something AAA studios have lost over time with the advent of cheap space, but it's something to remember. In the end, the Zelda series will be with us as long as Nintendo is making games. The world gained a great story when Miyamoto made the Hyrule Fantasy, and a great series. There's a reason people still talk about a 26-year-old franchise. It's just that damn good. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Retro Fun Time. Of course, you can catch all of our previous episodes at our website, www.CosmicRadio.TV/RetroFunTime, or just subscribe here on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/CosmicRadio.TV. The minute you subscribe, you'll be guaranteed to get future episodes. And if you like what we're doing, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at CosmicRadio.TV. Make sure to use hashtag RetroFunTime. Well, that's it for today, so tune in next time we talk about another classic game. And always remember, it's not art unless we prove it to be. Take care.